My name is Zeth, and I am 62 years old. At my age, you begin to understand something about life. Money comes and goes, houses can be bought and sold, but the love of family, if you're lucky enough to have it, is supposed to last forever. Or at least, that's what I believed. I spent most of my life working long hours as a construction supervisor. My hands are still rough from decades of lifting bricks, measuring beams, and working under the hot sun. I never became rich, but I earned enough to live with dignity. And everything I built with one purpose in mind: family. But the day my grandson's wife demanded $3,500 in rent for the house I had given them, I realized something painful. Sometimes the people you sacrifice the most for are the ones who value it the least. And sometimes love must be balanced with self-respect. The house that held my memories, the small 2-story house on Maple Street, was more than just property to me. It was a symbol of my life's work. I bought it 20 years ago when the neighborhood was still quiet and filled with young families. I remember standing in the empty living room on the first day I got the keys. The walls were bare, the floors creaked, and the kitchen cabinets were falling apart. But I saw potential. I spent months renovating it myself. Every weekend, I painted walls, fixed pipes, installed new flooring, and built shelves with my own hands. That house slowly transformed into something warm and welcoming. Over the years, it became the place where my grandson Daniel grew up visiting. He used to run through the hallway shouting, "Grandpa, look how fast I can go." I can still hear his laughter echoing in my mind. Back then, I thought those memories would last forever. The gift. Daniel was the only grandchild I had. After his parents divorced, life became difficult for him. His father moved to another city, and his mother struggled to keep things together. That's when he started spending more time with me. I helped him with homework. I attended his school plays. I even taught him how to drive when he turned 16. So when he graduated from college and told me he was getting married, I felt proud, like a father watching his son grow up. One evening he came to my house, excitement shining in his eyes. "Grandpa," he said, "Vanessa and I are trying to find a place to live, but the rent prices are crazy." I nodded quietly. I already knew what I wanted to do. The following weekend, I took him to Maple Street. We stood in front of the house. He looked confused. "Why are we here?" I placed the keys in his hand. "You and your wife can live here." His eyes widened. "Grandpa, what?" "It's yours to live in. No rent, just take care of it." Daniel hugged me tightly. I swear I'll never forget this. For a moment, I felt like the happiest man alive. When things began to change. At first, everything seemed perfect. Daniel and Vanessa moved in, and they thanked me several times. Vanessa even baked cookies for me the first week. But slowly something changed. Small comments began slipping into conversations. "This house is kind of outdated. The kitchen feels small. Most couples our age have modern homes." I brushed it off. Young people often want nicer things. But soon the visits stopped. Daniel used to call me every week. Now weeks passed without a single message. When I asked if everything was okay, he simply said, "Yeah, Grandpa, we've just been busy." Busy? That word slowly created distance between us. The visit. One afternoon, I decided to visit them. I stopped by the bakery and bought a warm apple pie, Daniel's favorite since he was a kid. When I rang the doorbell, Vanessa opened the door. Her smile was polite but cold. "Oh, hi." I lifted the pie slightly. "Thought I'd bring dessert." She stepped aside slowly. "You should have called first." I chuckled. Well, it's still my house, so I figured it was okay. Her expression stiffened. Daniel came into the room, clearly surprised. "Grandpa, hey." Something felt wrong. The warmth that once filled the house had disappeared. The demand. A week later, Daniel called and asked me to come over again. "This time we need to talk," he said. When I arrived, Vanessa was already sitting at the table. A document lay in front of her. She pushed it toward me. "We've been discussing boundaries." I raised an eyebrow. "Boundaries?" She nodded. "Since we live here now, we need things to be more structured." I looked down at the paper. It was a rental agreement. My stomach tightened. Vanessa spoke calmly. "If you want to stay here sometimes or visit frequently, you'll need to pay $3,500 in rent each month." For several seconds, the room felt silent. I honestly thought she was joking, but her face remained serious. I slowly turned to Daniel. "Is this some kind of prank?" He avoided my eyes. "Grandpa, we just think it's fair." Fair? The word hit me like a punch to the chest. I had given them a house, and now they were charging me rent. Not because they needed it, but because they believed they had control. I stood up quietly. "You're serious?" Vanessa crossed her arms. "Yes." I nodded slowly. "All right." And then I walked out. The long night. That night was one of the longest nights of my life. I sat alone in my living room, staring at old photo albums. There was Daniel at age 5, holding a toy airplane. Daniel at 10, proudly showing me his report card. Daniel at 18, hugging me after graduation. How did that boy turn into someone who could sit silently while his wife demanded rent from his own grandfather? Around 3 in the morning, I realized something painful. Love should never require humiliation. The decision. Fortunately, when I allowed them to move in, I had never transferred the ownership. The house was still legally mine. The next morning, I called my lawyer. 2 weeks later, I returned to Maple Street. But this time, I wasn't alone. A legal officer stood beside me. Daniel opened the door. His face immediately filled with confusion. "Grandpa." I handed him the envelope. Inside was an eviction notice. They had 30 days to leave the house. Vanessa screamed, "You can't do this." I looked at her calmly. "I can, and I just did." The truth. A few days later, Daniel came to see me alone. He looked tired, almost broken. "I'm sorry, Grandpa." I stayed silent. He explained everything. Vanessa had been pressuring him for months to transfer the house into their names. She believed they could sell it for a huge profit and buy a luxury condo downtown. Charging me rent was just the first step. When Daniel refused to sell the house behind my back, their relationship began collapsing. Sometimes greed reveals people's true character faster than anything else. The empty house. 30 days later, they moved out. The house was quiet again. One afternoon, Daniel helped me clean the living room. Dust floated in the sunlight as we moved old furniture. He looked around sadly. "I almost ruined everything." I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Mistakes don't define us, but our choices afterward do." A new beginning. A few months later, I made a decision about the house. Instead of renting it, instead of selling it, I donated it to a community housing program that helps struggling families. Single mothers, hardworking parents, people who truly needed a chance. When Daniel heard the news, he was shocked. "You're giving it away." I nodded. "Someone out there will appreciate it." What I learned. Now, at 62 years old, I understand something I didn't fully realize before. Kindness is powerful, but kindness without boundaries invites disrespect. Helping family is beautiful, but respect must always go both ways. Because when people forget the value of what they've been given, life has a way of teaching them, sometimes gently, and sometimes the hard way. Moral of the story: true generosity should come from the heart, but it should never cost your dignity. Respect yourself, even when dealing with family, because kindness is a gift, and gifts should never be demanded, only appreciated. Story told by Zeth, 62 years old.